I have a little history story to share that involves the Sierra Nevada mountains and a lot of hiking. This comes from one of my favorite eras, of course, the late 1970s. So this is Greg Nichols writing for Men's Journal and John Long writing for, I'm sure you have this magazine, Climbing.
I used to, yeah.
So on December 8th, 1976, John Glisky and John Nelson left Las Vegas piloting a twin-engine Howard 500 aircraft. The Howard contained 1,500 gallons of fuel for long hauls at high speeds. Glisky and Nelson crossed the border, flew into Baja California, where they landed on an airstrip. And later that night, under the cover of darkness, a crew loaded that plane with 6,000 pounds of Mexican red-haired marijuana known as Mota Magic.
Oh,
This was
Mota Magic?
Mota, M-O-T-A.
Oh, okay.
This was the quote-unquote good shit in 1976. So I am positive this was dirt fucking weed.
Yeah,
now.
this is Kill Bill in your pappy's day.
Yeah.
Back then, if weed had a hair on it and it wasn't just like brownish, that was gold.
Oh yeah,
that was gold.
If boomers weren't all smoking schwiggity swag back then, trickling economics would have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
Before becoming a drug smuggler, John Glisky had flown helicopters in the Vietnam War. Him and his partner were headed to Washington State, where their buyers awaited the premium weed in 5-kilo bricks, tightly bound in plastic and stacked together in large burlap sacks labeled frijoles.
Yeah, that's in holy frijoles, right? Yeah.
In case they get pulled over and someone's like, "Oh yeah, that's a bunch of square beans."
We're delivering a lot of red-haired beans to people.
Well, it does say so on the box.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have a good
All
time.
right, have a good one, guys. No reason to lie about 6,000 pounds of beans. Makes sense.
So Glisky and Nilsson took off before dawn on December 9th, and after crossing back into U.S. airspace, they flew just off the coast of California. Halfway up the state, Glisky killed the running lights and turned sharply inland, flying low so as to avoid the radar, and the plane had soon reached the foothills of the mighty Sierra Nevada mountains. So, about a month later, it's January of 1977. Two young waiters at the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park.
That's way further away. Yeah.
They took acid and decided to set out on snowshoes for an overnighter in the backcountry of Yosemite.
As you do.
I love January. Acid, snowshoes.
We're in a place that's very harsh and difficult to survive with your full mind.
Yes, yeah.
Let's take some acid and see what happens.
I want to do do the Revenant, but on acid.
Yeah.
If you're local, that probably seems somewhat normal.
No, these are like very experienced climbers, but
I mean, I skipped the acid part and just went straight into psychosis.
Yeah, that's what I was also thinking when you were telling that story. I knew I was going to read that. I was like, God damn, this is just your whole head. Just
I will say, a little ayahuasca does take the edge off a bear attack.
I could fight a bear if I got my.
It's like it's not even happening to you; it's happening to that guy down there.
Is that bear attacking me, or are we becoming one?
Yeah.
You tell me, my furry friend.
Hey man, you got bear mace, I got mescaline, bro.
Maybe my spirit animal just wants to be more of me.
We're melding, bro.
So 6 miles out, they found an airplane wing and a debris trail. Hydraulic oil was still dripping from the frayed lines, soiling the snow below. Once the acid wore off, they went back to the valley and alerted the rangers. Agents from NTSB, FAA, Customs, and the DEA all quickly assembled in the Yosemite Valley. Customs sent a Vietnam-era Huey helicopter from San Diego to shuttle the feds to the crash site.
From San Diego? That is a long flight.
I know, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Military base.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there's one close by. What is that? Brandenburg or whatever?
Yeah, they don't have
Vandenberg.
They don't have the Vietnam helicopters
there. Yeah. They just have the little helicopters.
Yeah, they had just come back from Vietnam. Like, we just got these.
Not to harp on this, but like, who does like before you do illegal shit, you're supposed to do a huge rail of coke like Scarface. Like, you don't take a hallucinogen and then start tripping when you're in the paddy wagon later.
They're like, nah, man, that's cliche. Let's try it this way.
Well, they had just like happened upon this crash site, basically.
Yeah, the trip guys are just some random guys.
Yeah. They were just the guys that found it. They were shuttling the feds using the Huey up to the crash site, Lower Merced Pass Lake, 16 miles from Yosemite Valley. Over the following days, federal officers hauled about 3,000 pounds of the marijuana out of the plane wreck. Since the crash, the lake had frozen over, and divers couldn't extract the bodies of Glisky and Nelson because they were frozen under the water in the cockpit.
But then they lost half of it?
No, they pulled. Well, here's what happened. They got half of it out, but then logistics and the forecast of an approaching snowstorm shut down the operation. So they got the hell out of there. So they had pulled 3,000 of the 6,000 pounds out, and now the feds are like, "Oh shit, it's going to snow on us. We might get trapped here. We'll deal with it in the spring." So they left.
For the thaw.
Yes, straight up. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So given the waist deep snow and marathon trudge from the valley, the park superintendent chose to wait for spring thaw to complete their recovery. So now there's just 3,000 pounds of weed
And 2 dead bodies.
and 2 dead bodies in a lake in the middle of Yosemite. It's winter of 77 now, and you can imagine the mentality of hikers, generally speaking, now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, think of that back then. It is just straight up the hippiest hippies who ever hippied.
Yeah, there's going to be 2 dead bodies by the time the feds get there. Like everything else will be.
So John Gliske's wife, Pam, had received no information about her husband except that the plane had crashed somewhere in Yosemite. Gliske's attorney, Jeffrey Steinborn, was alerted that his client was dead. Steinborn hated Gliske, but he was still in love with his wife.
What?
And so, as a favor to his old flame, he drove a rental car to Yosemite and was able to get the lowdown on the dead pilots and the abandoned weed salvage operation from eavesdropping on federal agents at a nearby bar.
This is a bad movie.
This story has everything.
Yeah.
It has everything I love 70s, where it's
Yeah.
like drug dealer and his lawyer's involved. The lawyer's fucking the wife. There's
Why,
weed. There's,
why is no one talking about this?
why is talking about this? Yeah. Why is it just up to climbing in Men's Journal? This should be on to the nightly news.
Said it's all about the election.
Yeah. So on his last night in Yosemite, the lawyer noticed a fire burning in a campground nearby. He lit up some tie stick and sauntered towards the trees. Just got getting the shittiest weed.
Again, this is already back to last week's episode. This is why I would want to go to the 70s.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. So he walks towards the fire he sees, and he found about a dozen young climbers around a fire. And he passed his joint around and told them a fantastic story about an airplane full of dope at Lower Merced Lake Pass.
Gather round, all ye climbers, and listen to me.
Straight up. I love that they didn't have any suspicion that he was a fucking cop.
Yeah, right.
I'd be like, get out of here, you fucking narc. So this
Another traveler, man.
yeah. So this is a quote from the lawyer. "I knew John and Jeff were dead, but I just had this romantic notion that somebody should smoke that beautiful weed those guys were bringing back from Mexico."
It would be ruined.
Yeah. Well,
it would be a shame, man. Be a shame to pass it up, man.
so 4 climbers made their way up to Lower Merced Pass Lake, the elevation 9,000 feet, and it was snowing on and off. They got to the wreck site before dawn. They walked across the frozen lake to the plane, and reaching into a slushy hole
No.
next to the cockpit, they began pulling out what looked like plastic-wrapped hay bales. They hauled the bales into the moonlight, broke them open. Still disbelieving, they studied it under their headlamps, sniffed it, ate it, and finally smoked it. The legends were true. The crashed airplane was indeed bursting
It's like a
with
Willie Nelson song.
straight up. It was bursting with hundreds of pounds of Mexican weed that would come to be known as airplane.
But
Wow.
I'm trying to understand their rationale of like, okay, there's a bunch of weed up there. There's only 4 of us.
Uh-huh.
Let's go hike very, very far and find 3,000 pounds of something that needs to be carried back.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you go up there to test the waters. First, you go up and be like, is this an urban legend?
This is a
And then
reconnaissance.
you get there and you're like, is this a prank?
This is-
When you start eating weed, which does not do anything. It does not get you high at all. And then you're like, I think I'll smoke this weed that has been frozen and is definitely wet.
One way to
When
tell.
you know when
man.
you light something frozen on fire and it starts dripping water?
I feel like one of those guys is like, anybody else getting like cadaver off of this?
I would be salty. Be a salty
Yeah.
flavor.
We'll address the flavor in a moment, but the storm that led the feds to abandon the recovery effort never came. And it was actually a little bit warm that spring, and since rangers never stationed anyone to stand guard, the feds were none the wiser that first team of climbers ended up making 4 trips in as many days to ransack the Howard 500. Each time they threw out a bale, another bobbed to the surface. So it's like a Pez dispenser of fucking giant bags of weed. Just they're pulling it out, another one comes up.
This was an episode of Lost, wasn't it?
So word got out, and soon the gold rush was on. Throughout the early spring of 1977, a steady stream of climbers were tromping the 32-mile round trip up to the lake and back. Some teams returned with upwards of 200-pound loads, and
Oh my God.
which could fetch upwards of $50,000 on the open market. In just over a week, more than $500,000 of weed had been hauled out of there.
This reminds me of like how like if you watch Seinfeld now, you're like, all of these episodes could not happen if you just had a cell phone. It's like, none of this would happen because we have dispensaries.
Yes,
now. Like
yeah,
nobody
no one would do
this.
it. Yeah. So once all of the relatively easy to get stuff had been taken out, it was time to start pulling weed from under the ice. So people began hiking in with chainsaws that they rented from local lumberjacks.
Oh my God.
For several days, people walked around the lake with buzzing saws. They'd pick a spot, dig in with the chainsaw, and if the green stuff shot up from the chain, they knew where to dig. So they're just walking on a frozen lake covered in snow, just like, all right, let's give it a try. And then,
Dude, this is like someone who comments on these YouTube videos is like actually actual fucking past history. Like this is a story they would tell.
They say weed's not addictive.
Yeah, right.
Man, I don't go hiking 32 miles for nothing.
See return on my investment, man.
one guy even picked up where the feds left off and returned with a wetsuit. He ended up finding even more weed underwater, as well as Glisky's attaché case full of money. So one guy, because
that's the real prize.
Yeah, hell yeah. It didn't. I couldn't figure out how much he found, but
Of course, he's not going to report that.
no, fuck no. Soon, all across Yosemite Valley and in small towns nearby, in tents, cabins, bungalows, bathrooms, and garages, tons of waterlogged weed was drying out under heaters.
Ugh, God.
That's when the marauders discovered a small problem.
Uh-oh.
The fuel cells on the Howard burst on impact, and some of the weed was absolutely drenched in aviation fuel.
Whoa.
Even if you couldn't smell the gas initially, you'd find out the moment you tried to light it when a flame-like blowtorch leapt from the bowl.
Jet fuel can't melt Steely Dan.
That's why they were calling it airplane, because it's like them firing up the Batmobile. Nonetheless, I know, you just imagine some guy like burning his eyebrows off or some
Your
shit.
dad's friend.
Yeah.
This is such a funny thing about the feds dealing with drugs too. Is like they pulled $500,000 of marijuana from this plane. It's like, no, that's probably like $10,000 once you find out what it's actually fucking worth.
Right.
Well, Sam, it says, nonetheless, the tainted goods fetched top dollar up and down the West Coast.
damn it.
Climbers who didn't have 2 dimes to rub together the week before streamed back into the valley. One had left for Berkeley in a shitty car stuffed to the windows with wet gas weed. And
Hey man, want to smoke some shit that you'll die if you hit?
and only 10 days later, he was back in Yosemite driving a Lincoln Continental convertible complete with fuzzy dice in the rearview mirror.
Most 1970s thing I've ever heard.
Like just
Superfly playing out of the back.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Like even if it doesn't like explode in your hand, wouldn't it like poison you?
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone in this story has
It's
cancer.
cancer now. Yes, they're all dead of cancer.
Or
Graveyard.
it's like you meet an old hippie and you're like, damn, you're a burnout. What happened? Oh, you're
Airplane.
smoking jet fuel.
Dude, I was smoking airplane, bro.
Yeah, back in the 70s,
Now-
we had to hike 32 miles to huff jet fuel weed, and
Now they got hippity hop music.
Another guy rolled up on a chopped up Harley wearing a buckskin suit. He was accompanied by a Latvian model who spoke almost no English and wore almost no clothes. Like, not to disparage hikers, but it's just so funny to imagine, like, hey man, I'm one with the mountain, bro. And then 2 weeks later, he is just literally showing up like
that
a
is
like
not
a
what
pimp.
modern hikers are like. Like they're all like dudes with like little wrist computers being like,
Yeah.
oh, bro, the amount of incline, I used all my uppies on the way up, and I don't know, but, like they're
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all checking their heart rate on the way down. They're like, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?"
yeah. But back in the 70s, this was just people who like to
It was-
obviously
yeah, it was
drop acid and commune with
There's a
nature.
guy who looked like he played bass for the Doobie Brothers and with a machete. Yeah.
But then comes back and they were talking about all these guys coming and dropping like $800 at restaurants, and again in 1977 money, like buying cognac and like steaks for everybody and shit like that.
Another round of steaks, man.
Yeah, straight up. Other hikers spent their money on extravagant climbing trips to France and Asia and blowouts that are still the stuff of legend in the Yosemite Valley. It is likely the biggest windfalls exceeded over $20,000 for some people.
Nice.
Well, I mean, you can have a nice time for $20K, but I don't know if it becomes a thing of legend.
The
For
climbers,
drug dealers. You make $20,000 one time.
selling,
You're a hero.
selling the worst weed of all time.
Sell it all profit.
Yeah, all profit for just
Dead bodies left in your trail.
yeah. Cadaver and airplane gas flavored weed.
Look, man, I'm an avid outdoorsman, but if someone was like, hear me out, it's 32 miles, we need a chainsaw. I'm like, nope. Not going.
So
32 miles
No,
there?
You don't understand. We're going to chainsaw into a frozen lake.
Oh, yeah. Super not going.
and we might find a body.
I hear there's an attaché case. Oh, okay.
Legend tells of it, bro.
I love you guys, man.
Dude, I met this Latvian girl. If I came back with some cash, she would ride a motorcycle with me for sure.
Do you want to hit this face burning weed?
Dude, there's a finger in this one, dude.
It's part of it, bro. You got to smoke the finger.
We call it Bad Finger, like that band I like.
Man.
They got found by the Beatles, man.
You ever think about shit like that?
Why hasn't anyone talking about Bad Finger? Why isn't everybody talking about Badfinger, man?
Dude, seriously.
No, Paul wrote this one.
George is actually playing guitar on it.
Why isn't Ted Koppel reporting about this?
I don't know. Because he's a narc.
He's a fucking
Yeah.
narc, man.
He's part of the system, man.
So the climbers tend to...
We're the counterculture. This is the stuff of legend.
So the climbers tended to live fast, and in most cases, the money didn't last long. On April 13th, a
Live
date
fast, die middle age. That's what a lot of them did.
with gas weed cancer in your fucking body.
Do you think people talking about laced weed back in the day, they're just accidentally smoking jet fuel? And they're like, somebody put PCP in this.
Yeah.
They're probably like bonus.
Yeah.
Nice.
So April 13th, a day that would be known in history as Big Wednesday, which what a great pothead name.
Sure.
Dude, I mean,
Yeah.
we was doing good till Big Wednesday,
Big
man.
Wednesday fucked it up for us, man.
Oh, dude.
So on Big Wednesday,
Bumming me out, dude.
another Huey lowered into the lower Merced Pass with 6 rangers. Quote, by all reports, it was like ants scattering, recalls a radio operator at the time. The people up there had created this infrastructure, kind of like the Viet Cong put in some areas of Vietnam. And I'm like, get this guy away from the park rangers.
Whoa.
The fact that he's thinking of hikers is like, this is just like Charlie.
He saw some shit. He was probably there.
Yeah.
You weren't there, man. It was Big Wednesday.
Da Nang was Big Tuesday.
Yeah.
So they created infrastructure like the Viet Cong had put in some areas of Vietnam. Makeshift housing and tents, fire pits, all sorts of tarps. And I'm like, that's just camping. Yeah. Chill.
They were like Charlie. They had tents, dehydrated meals,
Dave, you got to chill the fuck out.
REI memberships, shoes that can do at least 6 miles, marshmallows placed on sticks with Hershey chocolate. Why isn't anyone talking about it?
Yeah, where's Walter Cronkite? The war in Yosemite Valley is unwinnable.
Keep pulling up newscasts.
Yeah.
Where's Edward Murrow?
Yeah. No, he literally says they picked up digging equipment wherever they could. This is real caveman technology. And I'm like, again, camping. You're 16
Shovels.
miles
Yeah.
into the bush of fucking Yosemite.
This
Yes.
guy would be like, I was at Walmart. It was just like the Nang. Everything was in aisles. There was tunnels.
The Park Service was embarrassed that the crash site had been discovered. Rangers were posted along the trail leading the way from the lake in order to catch people fleeing. For all the melee, though, only 2 people were arrested. They were told to report to the park's federal magistrate the next day, but the arrest was later nullified thanks to a due process violation. No one was ever convicted for their involvement in the incident that went down in history as Dope lake.
It was the greatest summer of our lives.
Straight up, yeah. This
That's
is
why you don't fucking talk to cops, man.
Yeah.
They don't read you your Miranda. It's not due process.
So after the siege, 2 Rangers who had also served in Vietnam were given rations and equipment and sent to guard the lake. The pair lived in a tent for 17 days with 38 special pistols at the ready.
With 38 special albums. At
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Rocket into the night.
And the emergency lava lamps being broken out.
And somebody talking about it being like, I think that's an unreleased 38 special album. Why did they put that one out? Why isn't anyone talking about it?
Like, it's just so funny how many like guys straight out of Vietnam, they're just like, hey, take care of this park where everyone's chill theoretically.
Welcome
No,
back
it
to
makes
Vietnam.
perfect sense.
Will you go guard
How
a lot
many-
of weed?
How many cops? How many cops are ex-military? It makes-
Not enough. The ex-military ones are less likely to, fill people full of holes. It's all the high school fucking losers.
Traffic cops.
Yeah, totally.
But what's hilarious is like park rangers now are like they're 90 yeyears old.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I just went to the Channel Islands and there was like a British man in his 90s. He was like, all right, if you're going to go hiking here, look out for foxes. What foxes? And I was like, should you be here?
Yeah, who's going to help you? If you park, use the QR code.
Yeah. Lyme disease is a problem.
So the quote from this is Jim Tucker, one of the 2 Rangers. Quote: "We caught about 6 parties going up to the lake. We separated them and interrogated them. Most were stop in the name of nature. Most were not climbers. Word had leaked out by them, though.
Pretty hot under these lanterns, isn't it?
He's making shadow puppets with his hands in the light.
Turn the lights off and the posters glow in the dark.
Don't make me turn the lights off and put my flashlight under my face and tell a scary story.
Look, a bat. Look at that.
Good cop, spooky cop. And they say he still haunts this very ground today.
He looked something like this.
So now it's like word is out about this. So these guys are just goalkeeping, not even experienced hikers, just anybody's like, ooh, we get gas weed up here. So for 2 months, rangers rotated in to keep watch over the lake. Hopeful arrivals kept showing up with visions of a lake full of pot. Some were woefully ill-prepared for spring hiking at high elevation. One group got lost for a week without adequate food before finally stumbling across a trail. It wasn't until...
A week?
Yeah.
I've been lost for like a bit, but like a week?
Apparently.
Yeah.
That's like you've gone missing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. In Yosemite, especially. Jesus. So it wasn't until mid-June that the lake thawed suitably for a salvage operation. On June 16th, a local salvage company began pulling the fuselage and the occupants out of the water. The NTSB deemed the crash an accident.
So which one was Big Wednesday? Like what? That's just
Big Wednesday is when they
the
sent
Huey?
they
That's when they-
sent in
yeah.
a Huey and chased everyone out of this lake. They were like, get the fuck out. So, because everybody had just been kind of going around, they'd take these big hikes around where the people were stationed.
Everyone's smoking gas weed in this
Yes.
beatific utopia.
Yeah,
and
straight
they're
up.
Like, all right, you fucking hippies, get out of here.
Yeah.
Hippies are bad at naming things. Like Big Wednesday should be the day you found the most shit.
Right. Big Wednesday is the day the party was over, man.
Bummer Wednesday.
Yeah.
Bummer
Bummer
Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Yeah. Stone Cold Bummer Wednesday.
We all had to go back to our jobs, man.
Yeah. Our jobs of sitting in a tent and hiking.
I didn't want to work at that gas station anymore, man.
Once you've had that jet fuel, you can't go back to auto fuel.
That fucking airplane, dude. The Men's Journal article is awesome. I kind of excerpted a lot of that from it. It's much, much longer. It talks about Jim Lyski and floats the conspiracy theory that before he crashed, he did tell his wife that he found something wrong with like the fuel lines in his plane. And he was like, I don't think this was natural wear and tear. And the DEA for sure knew about this fucking guy. So the wife actually still believes, Pam, who was boning his lawyer, she still thinks that it was, the DEA set him up to fly into the
That or
mountains.
they were like, bro, grab the fuel line, sprinkle it on the weed. That's the stuff. What? I'm losing pressure.
I'd like to meet the one guy who stopped smoking weed after the jet fuel weed ran out. He's like, it's just not the same anymore, man.
Of course. Yeah, definitely.
There's no risk of me losing my eyebrows. It's just not the same.
Or that guy now is like, you don't know what's in kids' weed these days. It's more powerful.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Top Gun? That's what my pipe looked like. Oh man, well that's a story of Dope Lake.
It's a great story.
I want to go there now.
Now I do too. Like I gotta say, that's not on all trails. That's not listed as a place you can hike to. Yeah,
I use all trails as well, and I would save that one. I would download
all
that map.
trails, Dope Lake Trail. Nope, it's not coming up.
Yeah. Have you ever hiked past any plane wrecks up in the mountains?
Yeah, there is one up on. Is it on Gorgonio? There's one that there's a couple of ones that you can walk by them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They tell you not to though. They're like respect it's their final
right. Yeah, we at Philmont up on I think it's Mount Raton. They have it's like an old I think a B-52 bomber. That crashed. It's like a military aircraft that crashed up there, and we hiked up there one day. And then also on Mount Cheaha, Alabama's tallest mountain. And to give you an idea of how tall Cheaha is, you can drive a car to the top of it. So, but I have hiked it several times.
I have friends that would do that while tripping Robitussin.
Dude, they got a hotel with a pool up there at the top, man.
Dude, they used to call it Plateau Sigma, man.
Plateau Sigma. Hell yeah. But yeah, there's a small plane crash there, and one of my memories of being there in Boy Scouts is, will tell you the exact year. John Denver had just died.
Oh yeah,
and so
in a plane crash.
Yes, and we're walking by and we see this old plane crash that's probably been up there since the 80s at this point, and all of our scout leaders gathered around and started singing "Country Roads" as a very dark fucking joke because he had died like a week earlier. So I think my dad might have initiated that one. So anyway, shout out to him and Dr. Bliss. Y'all are hilarious. But yeah, Dope Lake. I want to go check that out at some point. It's Lower Merced Lake.
Yeah, I know where the area is.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if this is still true. I had a friend who lived there for a while, and she ended up moving away. And it's all cartel run now.
Oh yeah, Murder Mountain.
Yeah. It's all very yeah. A lot of people who just look like farmers, but they are not. They're farmers. They're growing. They're growing the new version of airplane.
Yes,
now.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we call it Top Gun, man.
We call it Maverick, man. Yeah. It's better than Top Gun.
We call it Val Kilmer, man.
So fucking gnarly. You stop talking.
Yeah, I know. Gives you mouth
Bryan
cancer.
Cranston, man. Hits you later in life.
This one has eras, dude.
This weed has eras, just like Taylor Swift.